Hello friends. Well, in this video session, I have come up with the explanation of the poem John Brown by Bob Dylan. And it's a very deeply touching poem that will touch every core of your heart. Now, telling you about Bob Dylan. Now, Bob Dylan is an American singer, songwriter, poet, and painter. He was born in Minnesota, USA on May 24, 1941. He has been a major influential figure in popular music and culture for his extraordinary folk and country songs. He is known for his lyrics that carry a wide range of political, philosophical, social, and literary influences. He has received 11 Grammy Awards, a Golden Globe Award, an Academy Award, and the Presidential Medal of Freedom. In 2016, he received the Nobel Prize in Literature for having created new poetic expressions within the great American song tradition. So this is about Bob Dylan, his achievements. Now coming to the poem, and the poem is John Brown. So here I begin the first stanza. So first I'll read out the lines and then I'll offer the explanation of the lines. Now, the stanza begins here. The first stanza. John Brown went off to a war to fight on a foreign shore. His mama sure was proud of him. He stood straight and tall in his uniform and all. His mama's face broke out all in a grin. Now, the explanation. As the poem begins, Dylan introduces the two characters in his song. One is John Brown, a young soldier who proudly marched off to fight a war in a foreign land, and the other is his mother, who felt proud of her son, as it was indeed a heroic deed to fight for one's nation. Her face was filled with joy when she saw her young son in uniform, ready to go to the war front. The words tall, straight, and uniform intensify the sense of pride felt by the mother and her son. Now coming to stanza 2. And here it is. Oh son, you look so fine. I'm glad you are a son of mine. You make me proud to know you hold a gun. Do what the captain says. Lots of medals you will get, and we'll put them on the wall when you come home. Wow, wonderful lines. Now, the explanation goes, in this stanza, the mother compliments her son and says that he looks really fine in his uniform, and she is glad to have a son like him. The image of her son holding a gun makes the mother feel proud. She advises him to follow his captain's commands so that he wins lots of medals. She says that she will proudly display those medals on the wall at her home after he returns from the battlefield. Unmindful of the harsh realities of war, the mother happily hopes to see her son back home. So, this is the explanation of the second stanza. Now coming to the third stanza, and here it is. As that old train pulled out, John's ma began to shout, telling everyone in the neighborhood, "That's my son that's about to go. He's a soldier now, you know." She made well sure her neighbors understood. Now, the explanation is, as the train accommodating the soldiers left, John's mother began to shout excitedly and happily to everyone in the neighborhood that her son had become a soldier and is about to leave to perform his duty in the war. She took great care to see that everyone in her neighborhood knew well about her son. Now coming to stanza 4, and here it is. She got a letter once in a while, and her face broke into a smile. And she showed them to the people from next door, and she bragged about her son with his uniform and gun. And these things you call a good old fashioned war. Oh, good old fashioned war. Now, the explanation is this stanza speaks of the letters the mother used to receive from her son. Occasionally, whenever she received a letter from her son, she would cheer up and show it proudly to her next door neighbors. She proudly spoke of her son dressed in his uniform and holding a gun. By using the phrase good old fashioned war, Dylan mocks war that takes countless human lives, but ironically is glorified by human society across the world. The suffering, pain, and cruelties of war is never highlighted. Now, coming to stanza 5, and here it goes. Then the letters ceased to come. For a long time they did not come. They ceased to come for about 10 months or more. Then a letter finally came saying, "Go down and meet the train. Your sons are coming home from the war." Now the explanation is, after some time it so happened that the letters from the son stopped coming to the mother. For about 10 months or more, no letter came until one letter finally came that informed her to go to the train as her son was coming home from the war. Now, coming to stanza 6. She smiled and went right down. She looked everywhere around, but she could not see her soldier son in sight. But as all the people passed, she saw her son at last. When she did, she could hardly believe her eyes. Now, the explanation of these lines goes, the mother smiled to get the news about her son finally. She felt very happy. She excitedly went straight to the station and looked everywhere for her son, but could not find him anywhere in the crowd. After all the people gathered there had passed, she got a glimpse of her son finally. She could not believe her eyes when she saw her son. Now the stanza 7 comes up. And here it goes. Oh, his face was all shot up and his hand was all blown off. And he wore a metal brace around his waist. He whispered kind of slow in a voice she did not know, while she couldn't even recognize his face. Oh Lord, not even recognize his face? Now the explanation is, in this stanza, the poet describes the horrific state of John Brown's body. His face was badly bruised and his hand was blown off. The proud young soldier's son, who stood straight and tall, now wore a metal brace around his waist for support. He whispered slowly, but his mother could not understand what her son said. She could not even recognize her son's face, as it had gruesome marks of injury. This terrible image is aimed at describing the horrific consequences of war. His mother could neither recognize his voice nor his face, as his body was all bruised and damaged. Now coming to stanza 8. Oh, tell me, my darling son, pray tell me what they done. How is it you come to be this way? He tried his best to talk, but his mother could hardly move, and the mother had to turn her face away. Now the explanation is, the mother is shocked to see her son so badly wounded. She asked her son John how it all had happened. Her son tried his best to speak, but his mouth could hardly move to speak anything. As the mother could not bear to see her son in such a deep pain and suffering, she had to turn her face away. Now stanza 9 comes up. Don't you remember, Ma, when I went off to war? You thought it was the best thing I could do. I was on the battleground, you were home acting proud. You wasn't there standing in my shoes. Now the explanation is, in this stanza, John seems to be speaking to his mother about the romantic notions she carried when he set off to war. He seems to be asking his mother why she thought it was the best thing for him to do. He was on the battleground fighting enemies, and she was at home, feeling proud of her son's achievement. She was not in the battlefield. After experiencing the disastrous consequences of war, John seems to be accusing his mother of thinking to see him as a war hero. She did not realize the painful moments a soldier suffered in the battlefield. He appeared to be thanking his mother for not being in the battlefield to watch the ruthless killing and bloodshed there. Now coming to stanza 10. So you notice how touching this poem is. So stanza 10. Oh, and I thought I was there. God, what am I doing here? I'm trying to kill somebody or die trying. But the thing that scared me most was when my enemy came close. And I saw his face look just like mine. Oh Lord, just like mine. Now the explanation is, in this stanza, John seems to be telling about what happened in the battlefield. His eyes seem to be asking God as to why he went to the battlefield and what he was doing there. He was only trying to kill someone or die while trying to do so. What scared him the most in the battlefield when an enemy soldier came close to him, who looked just like him, just like another fellow human being. John's pathetic state expresses the chaotic, brutal, and irrational aspect of war. Here, Dylan addresses the violence and injustice that nations enforce upon their soldiers to commit upon men of the other side on the battlefield. Now, coming to stanza 11. And I couldn't help but think, through the thunder rolling and sting, that I was just a puppet in a play. And through the roar and smoke, the string is finally broke, and a cannonball blew my eyes away. Now here, the explanation goes, Brown seems to be back on the battlefield again. He recollects the chaotic situation on the battlefield and how he felt himself as a puppet in the play, planned and played by the war-mongering leaders of the nation and army commanders. The lives of the soldiers did not matter to them. All that mattered was victory or defeat. To them, war was a puppet show in which the soldiers had to mindlessly follow orders and kill as many enemies as they could. As he was thinking so, a cannonball came and blew his eyes away. Now, coming to the last stanza. And the last stanza goes, as he turned away to walk, his ma was still in shock at seeing the metal brace that helped him stand. But as he turned to go, he called his mother close, and he dropped his medals down into her hand. Now, the explanation is, in the final stanza, the poet Bob Dylan describes the movement of John Brown. As John turned away, his mother was still in shock to see the metal brace that supported him to stand. She had never imagined that she would see her son in such a terrible condition. Carrying romantic notions, she had sent him off to war. She had never expected to see her son returning in such a pathetic state. Now, So, this is the end of the explanation of stanza 12. Now, the poem ends on a very deeply touching, distressing note. When John Brown called his mother close and dropped his medals down into her hand. This disturbing image brings forth the mindless and meaningless exercise of war that takes countless lives of men for no fault of theirs. Medals are given to soldiers for their bravery, but only at the cost of human lives, lots of human lives on the battlefield, the countless human lives on the battlefield. They don't give back the lives of straight and tall sons to their mothers. In the name of patriotism, they take countless human lives. So friends, here I come to the end of the explanation of this long poem in 12 stanzas. And if you have subscribed to my channel, thank you. If you haven't, and if you choose to subscribe, I promise that I'll be coming up with quality videos for you from time to time so that you score high marks in your examination. Thank you.